welcome back to another episode of our podcast, The West Wing, Beneath the Black, Teal, and Gold. I'm your host, Mia Montillano, a senior and your ASB President for this year. And a cool fact that you should know about me is that I started baking strawberry cow cookies this weekend. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around the table and we're going to introduce ourselves. Our ASB members are going to say their name, their grade, and their commissionership, and a cool fact. And I'm pleased to announce that we have our first student guest speaker this week. So she will be introduced by Dean.
Whoa.
Hello, I'm Dean. You probably already know me from the last episode podcast, but I like model trains, and I'm also the head of technology in ASB. So, our first guest speaker is Aeva Dobson. Hello.
Hi. I'm Aeva Dobson. I'm a senior, and a cool fact about me is that during quarantine, I finished watching the entirety of The Real Housewives of New Jersey.
Wow.
Wow.
Nice.
Don't know the first thing about that.
As you should.
It's
intense.
It's pretty heavy.
I can tell.
It's a lot. It's a lot of chasing. Lots of extensions being ripped out.
Hey.
Fun stuff.
Alright, hi guys, my name is John Doppler. I'm a senior here at Olympian and I am your Student Engagement Commissioner. And a cool fact about me is she's my sister. So that's kind of great. I'm an ASB, but she's not, but I'm glad she's here today.
Wow. That feels like a lot.
Okay, hi, my name is Lizzy. I'm a senior. I'm in finance. And a cool thing about me is that I have pink worm on a string earrings.
I love that, Lizzy.
The best.
Hi.
A statement.
I didn't quite catch it.
Okay, so my name is Quincie. I'm a senior. I am also a part of finance in ASB. And a cool fact about me is in the 4th grade talent show, I performed We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together. By Taylor Swift,
nice.
of course.
Yes.
That's like amazing. Hello everyone, I'm Christina. I'm a senior and I'm in publicity. One cool fact about me is that I like animation. I know I say that like every time, but I really like animation, so that's cool.
Yay.
Go follow C4 Icon on Instagram.
Daikon. Sorry.
Daikon. But
Pog.
Okay, anyways. Okay, so we're going to be starting a new segment for our guest speakers on this podcast. It's called the Fiery 5. So how it's going to work is that we're going to set a timer for 1 minute, and our speaker John is going to be interviewing our guest speaker and basically asking her a bunch of rapid fire interview style questions that she has to answer in 5 words or less. So, Dean, do you have the timer ready?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
You ready?
Let us know when you're ready.
Oh, like me?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't worry.
John, are you ready?
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready, Ava? You gotta be fast about it, okay?
Okay. Ready?
Okay.
Go.
Alright, so High School Musical 1, 2, or 3?
2.
Okay, in Twilight, do you like the werewolves or the vampires?
The vampires.
If there was a zombie apocalypse, where would you hide?
Underground.
Okay, if you were to grow any flower, what flowers would you grow?
Daffodils.
If you had to get rid of any certain grade of school, what grade would it be?
Second.
Second grade? Why second grade?
Because it sucks.
I agree.
There we go. Okay, so what do you think is the most dangerous sport there is?
Bobsledding.
Who is better looking, Channing Tatum or Zac Efron?
Zac Efron.
Okay, if you were a superhero, what would your power be?
Invisibility.
Why invisibility?
Because I don't like people seeing me.
That's why are you on a podcast?
Because I don't know.
Alright, the next question. Let me just think about this. What's your favorite show on TV?
Oh. Gosh, it's so hard.
5 seconds, dear.
The Houses of New Jersey.
Alright, what is the armpit of the United States? Any place?
Florida.
Florida. Okay.
1.
Yay!
Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you for
Yay!
participating. I think you
Oh my
did
God,
pretty good.
I
There's
like
just that
those
one
questions.
7-word.
Yeah.
I know, we should go around.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's
definitely.
That was
We
fun.
will in a future episode. Look out for that.
Sorry.
Alright, so...
I'll be better prepared for that, guys.
Oh, okay. So we're gonna start cracking down. In this episode, we're going to be addressing our very first student-submitted topic. So the topic for this week is a request for advice. And this was submitted by an anonymous person. So I'm going to read out their submission on the Google form. And they said, I have had a passion for art and expressing myself in a creative, thoughtful way that I feel confident in finding an outlet in. However, my parents do not support me going down this path, seeing it as a deviation of what they want me to do, a more technical job like architecture. To be fair, I did mention my love of building and designing places like houses and interiors, but it was merely a visual aesthetic aspect. I have not found the technical side to be fulfilling or rewarding. This is a topic that I felt anxious about for so long when my parents don't seem to support me for something that I would truly love to do when it all depends on the idea of, quote, getting money. Art doesn't fit the bill, they believe. It is a big risk, but I just want to make the jump and do my best. So if they were to summarize their entire situation into one question they want us to answer is, how do you find faith in doing something that others don't believe you can do, especially if it's a gamble? Okay, this is obviously a very weighty topic and very relevant especially for the seniors since college act season is here.
Okay.
So, I think the first question that I have for everyone to answer is, what qualifies something as a gamble when it's related to careers?
Okay.
I mean, like, I can answer, but
I mean, it's just like, oh, what?
Nothing, it's fine.
Dean? Hello? Oh, okay. Well,
No. Good.
I mean, it's just like something that I guess isn't well paying would be a gamble, because a lot of people want, like job security, and they want to make sure that they have money to live, but also something that you don't know that you'll be good at or really successful in. So it's more of like, it's a harder road, you would have to put more work in, that would be a gamble, versus something that could be like easier for you and then you're like already good at or something.
That's true.
Or perhaps like also something that could qualify is maybe like having some sort of luck involved, because like for your bachelor's degree, that would basically get you in most scenarios a job in some sort of 9-to-5 or whatever. But when you have like some sort of like element of luck in this way, so if you need to have some sort of talent, that would get you some sense of notoriety within a certain community, be considered a gamble.
So like a freelance artist, or like someone that gets their money from like they have to rely on other people.
See, even that's a gamble too.
Instead of like going to a normal 9-to-5 job.
I think it's pretty unfortunate that like that's in society now that's considered a gamble, because now like you're expected to get a job and like have this financial security the moment you leave high school, right? And it's sad because it's like is the only reason we're like living is to make money, And I think honestly now a gamble is just considered anything that won't guarantee you immediate monetary success, which is really sad.
I would also say a gamble is probably something that you want to do that they don't encourage in schools. A lot of school programs, they have arts and technical things and visual arts. A lot of the stuff that they push on you is this whole like academic path road. They don't have kind of classes for like wood shop. They don't have it for auto mechanics, home ec, other things that they used to do back then at the time, but now we've come to a more academic focused based learning that a lot of things that they taught back then for more trade-based jobs that you might be interested in aren't really opportunities anymore. So that's a gamble going into a world where there's people who have this kind of training that you don't have all the way up to when you graduate.
And it's really annoying because a lot of people don't really value trades versus like a job that you get like after college or like with a degree. So people like, if you go into a trade, it's like looked down on, even though it's like that's a really important part to society. It's important to, that's how we function every day, like, and so people tend to like kind of stick their nose out like when someone mentions a trade job, and it's like kind of not it.
Well, it's just, it's honestly just kind of stupid because you can't criticize someone for a service that you need. Like, say you need to get your car fixed. You can't talk down to the mechanics that are literally helping you like live your life. It doesn't make any sense. And exactly, like we should value those people because they have a valuable contribution to society. Some would say even more than certain academic professions. So
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so something that I'm noticing is that a lot of our conceptions of like what a gamble is are really focused on like tangible things and like the external things, it's like based on other people's expectations that we sort of impose on ourselves. Like that's how we perceive something as being like a gamble. But do you think it's possible to like consider something a gamble if we truly believe that it's going to bring us security of happiness? Like not necessarily security of money, but is it really so much of like an unstable thing if we're certain that it's going to fulfill us regardless of what other people expect? Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Well,
yeah.
if you put it into this context, just sort of redefining what you see as a gamble, the idea that you're going to be always satisfied by something, because if you think about it, the way that we sort of decide how people in society go into some sort of profession as they're older, we basically tell people at 18, here's your college application, a 4-year degree, like whatever you think you might be interested in for the rest of your life, and then in terms of your entire lifespan, that's probably a fifth of your lifespan. So that like developmental period between like age 0 to age 18 is when you decide what you're going to be interested in. And so in a way, when you are deciding this is what I want to do, a lot of times it can also be something that you don't necessarily want to do later on. So in a way, like even if you know that it finds you happiness now, it's also a gamble to sort of really delve into it, because you can't really determine based off of it. I know this is kind of like a downer sort of thing to say. It's just
I agree with you. That's okay.
Realistically speaking, there's a lot of times where people will think that they go into something that they want to do, and it just doesn't end up being as fulfilling as they want it to be.
Yeah.
Or even if like they can't like find the financial means to support it, then that just ends up being a burden that is too heavy to bear, even if what they do finds it makes them happy.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, because if you look at it like the things that made you happy when you were 12 or 13 aren't going to make you happy. Like, they're not the same things that make you happy now. And if you put that into perspective, what makes you happy now, it's not always going to make you happy when you get older, like the more you go into it.
Yeah, I mean, the college admissions process, like that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, the idea that you have to know what you want to do or else like you have no direction, like I always thought that was just so ridiculous, because it's like you just like Dean said, like that's like a very small snippet of your life, and it shouldn't really decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And I think a lot of times people look down on like career changes later in life as like, you know, you failed or like you made a mistake, when really like you're just always growing and changing, and it's not a big deal to really switch up what you're going to do because you're a different person than when you were 20 and you were in college. So yeah.
Christina, what were you gonna say?
Okay.
I'm so
What were you gonna
sorry.
say, Christina?
I think that goes the same way for like every job though, you know, like even if you want a career like, I don't know, like computer science, because you're like, oh my god, yeah, computer science is going to make me money, or architecture is going to make me money, and you take that chance, it's still a gamble for you to like actually go through with it, because if you go for that chance just because there's like money involved, you're going to regret it because you're not going to like it, like because it's not something you're passionate about, right? So like either way, I think I feel like at that point you're not choosing between like, is it okay to make this choice and like take a risk? You're choosing between like who do you want to be, you know? Like, do you want to like be someone that's making money and having a successful life, but you're not doing something that you like? Or do you want to be someone that's, you're maybe not in the best place, but you're ultimately like reaching the happiest you are, and like you're a happy person? So, it's like a balance, I guess, between the two.
And I'd like to add on to that. What I kind of noticed is that this whole idea of taking a gamble is sort of disappearing, If you're going based off like what our guest speaker's question was, it was kind of focused on what her parents, and they didn't want to make her take a gamble. This whole thing of a gamble, I think, is kind of based off fear. The parents, they themselves had to get a job, and once they did, they had found financial security. But getting a job for them was also a gamble, and now that they know what works, they don't want like their child to have to risk it. They want to just give them that security that they have at the moment. So when I think there's that whole gamble, I feel like as more generations go on and people know what makes money, this whole idea of trying something new doesn't work. Your parents, they should have like your best interest at heart. So obviously they're going to set you on a path where they know you're secure. And I think that's kind of in a way good, but it's also kind of damaging anything new. Like coming from personal experience, I have 6 nurses in my family because we know that nurses make money.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a very common thing. There's the Navy, there's being a doctor, there's all these things. And especially the kids who have parents in high professions, since they know that makes money, they want to push their kids towards those certain procedures, those kind of jobs, because they know that it makes money. I don't think they're more scared that you're going to find a bad job. I just think that they're more scared about you losing the lifestyle that you've grown up with. They don't want you to find yourself stuck in a place that you've never been in before.
They always want what's better for you. They want you to have a better life than they had, and then to make your kids' lives better than yours was.
Which I think connects back to the whole thing. Like, you have to decide: do you want this same life, or do you want to have like a life of your own? Because even if a life is good, you still have to make your own life.
I feel like something that I thought about too when I saw this topic was just the culture aspect of it. Because a lot of what so I guess you could say, was talking about was sort of like the fear of not really being able to sort of strike that balance between finding something that you love and finding something that is secure for you. And I struggle with sort of the same thing as well. I'm the son of 2 immigrant parents. They're from the Philippines, and what they learn as members of Gen X is that, especially in a third world country, is that the necessities are what's important. What you personally desire isn't necessarily what you need. And so they sort of took that point of view and sort of ran with it. So when they came to the US and they were able to finally find security, my dad was flat broke. And he just married my mom, and they moved to the US, and my dad joined the Navy, and he found financial security there. He found education, and so from his point of view, that was where the sort of necessity lied, or I lied? I don't know.
Yes.
Just sort of finding security for your family, and so. They sort of imposed that sort of same idea on to us. But when you think about it in the context of established people who were already who already had security growing up, you see from those same people who are also in the same sort of generation, they are more geared towards the sort of counterculturalism, do what you want, that makes you happy point of view. So in a way, there's this sort of culture clash with sort of contemporary American culture starting in the 70s, and then, or the 60s and 70s, and then also the culture of immigrants who just came here to find security. So they have very different priorities, and in a way that sort of sets them back in terms of what they can achieve in terms of mindsets.
Yeah, I think an important thing to consider is while your parents do want what's best for you, you should take what they say with a grain of salt, because their perceptions of the world, and especially of careers, like Dean just mentioned, they're very nuanced by their own lived experiences. They're nuanced by the families or the values that their families instilled in them growing up, or lack thereof, and also just like the time period that they grew up in. And a lot of what you guys are saying, like, I noticed that security is a word that's brought up a lot. And do you think that security has as much gravity or as much value now as it does, or as it did back then? Because I feel like now, like, it's not really something that we're concerned with. Maybe that's just because it's my privilege,
Yeah,
to say that. But I feel like at least for the community that we live in, we have access to things like technology and like social media that allows us to pursue these more creative careers, or like unconventional careers, and make, basically turn like our passions into reality. So I was wondering if you guys think security is worth sacrificing your personal ambitions for.
I mean, personally, I'm still struggling with security. Like, in my house, security is definitely like a really big factor. Like, I know a lot of people, they have immigrant parents, and they're usually like multiple generations past, but like, I was born in Korea, and then we came here, and my parents didn't know English, and like, honestly, me wanting to go into an art career is like, why? And I probably won't either, just because, like, just for me, I would personally just prefer to like not do that, at least for now, like keep it as a hobby. But like, to the person who sent the question, I strongly encourage them to go into their art career, because ultimately, I think if you're gonna do something that's different and it's not gonna grant you security, the best thing you can do is be really, really good at it, right? So if they want to go into an art career, just be really good. Like, just put your heart into it and just be the best person that you can, because like, get the most out of what you're doing, because you're already rebelling against something. But yeah.
I think, like, in terms of security, I mean, security for me, at least, is like it's a really big factor. Like, I really want to go into a career in like film, script writing, filmmaking, things like that. But I'm expected to have a backup for that if that doesn't work out. And I mean, like, I do want to go into this industry, but at the same time, I'm like really nervous, like, what if I don't make it? What if it doesn't work out? And so that kind of, like, whenever I'm like planning out like college applications and like where I'm gonna, what am I gonna do after like college if I do end up going this way and nothing, and like it doesn't end up working out, like, what am I gonna do then? And I think, like, I don't know, it's like it kind of takes up a lot of my mind when it comes to things like that. Like, I don't know.
I'd like to focus, because I feel like after what I just heard, you really need a good balance of what Christina said with putting it all out there, doing yourself the best you can be, and what Aeva said with security. Because really, you're taking a gamble on yourself.
Yeah.
Whenever you go into any sort of career with the arts, you have to kind of assume there's always going to be someone with more experience than you, someone who's been doing it longer. But it's that kind of like energy to just keep on going at it. So instead of just making that one skill improved or improving on that one skill alone, make yourself the best person possible. Even if you want to keep on pursuing a career in the arts, maybe like take more classes for like business, like make yourself not just better in your art, but more as an intellectual as well. Because once you find that good balance, you'll be able to have a better shot at your career in the arts, as well as maybe even pursuing more of like a financial careers to make your arts career more like stable. You want to have a job that helps you and allows you to keep on pursuing the arts.
Actually, that's something that my parents actually tried to come to terms with as well, because sort of the counterculturalism of like the 60s. I'm coming back to this because I feel like this is important. That also like seeped into Filipino culture, because Filipino culture is kind of ingrained in, like, at least modern Filipino culture is ingrained into modern American culture. And so since people were figuring out that we shouldn't be just mindless drones working 9 to 5s all the time. The sort of idea of trying to chase their personal ambitions was more and more real. But at the same time, they sort of had this conflict with security. So in a way, they were also experiencing the same sort of struggles that we did back then. But the way that my dad at least approached it was that he wanted to find security first and then reach his personal ambitions. Now, this doesn't work necessarily for everyone, because of just, I guess, it's on a case-by-case basis. It will work differently for other people. But my dad joined the Navy, he got financial security, and eventually, like 4 years ago, he started pursuing what he really wanted, which is photography. And he sort of took me under his wing, and I'm like also interested in like filmmaking, so that sort of worked out for us, and we ended up doing an event videography business together. And so going into that perception, there's implications for it that are positive. So you can sort of it's a way of having both, but at the same time, you don't really necessarily have that initial like boost into it, because once you start late, that means that you don't have as many connections. If you a 4-year university for engineering and then eventually try to get into art, then you won't know like as many people after like 15 years of working in engineering. You won't know as many people that will have the same interests as you, who will have the same sort of passion that you do and have connections to the industry. And because of that, like, you're kind of limited in what you can do. But of course, there's the internet. But like, as I said, it's a case-by-case basis. Like in filmmaking in particular, although like, yeah, there's the internet. If I wanted to go to USC to study film, but going to UCSD to study engineering. And so having that connection to like professors in that field, that would be a huge boost for me in terms of what I can do. But so then in that scenario, I would have more potential for success if I start. So ultimately, it comes down to what you want to achieve ultimately. So, yeah.
Yeah, you bring up a really good...
Oh, sorry. No, I just want to, before we move on, I just want to touch on what Mia was saying, because I think it's really important for our audience. So, like, I don't want to generalize, but I do want to acknowledge the fact that typically our generation, the kids that go to our school, the kids that are listening to this, have a lot more privilege than their parents did at the same age, and so I guess that's like a general case, but for the most part, I feel like we have more opportunities, we have more security. I mean, most of us, live in the suburbs. We're able to record this on our own laptops, and we just have a lot more. And so I feel like we should acknowledge that, because when our parents are telling us like, oh, like, you need security, you need this, it's like, yes, I do, but you needed a lot more than I did. I have, I guess, like, more room for error in this, age. Like, not saying that you should just like go waste your money on a degree that you don't need, but you also have more room to experiment, because it's kind of like you have a little bit of like a buffer zone, and so what I would say, I guess, to the person who submitted this is like, really look at like what you have and who's going to support you. And even if you're alone, I really, really highly recommend doing it, because at least like I feel like this is a common thing in San Diego. A lot of people go into the military. They go to the Navy for security, for education, for benefits, and like, it's totally a great thing to do, and I'm just like super proud of our town for being a military town. But I think there are a lot of people who do it just for the security, like my family members included, and then later in life they realize that they're like, well, actually I'm into art, or actually I'm into photography, or other things, and then they feel kind of like sad and behind, and not really like they spent their life following their passion, which is like a whole other topic, because passion is just so we could talk all day about that. But just this idea that like sometimes you don't always have to sacrifice everything for security. Like it's definitely important, and you know, finding education and benefits and for your family, that's super important, but also feeling fulfilled in your career and in your life is very important to I guess feel good about yourself and what you're doing.
Have to know, like, there you do have in front of you. So if you want to go for that security first and then decide to pursue something later, you have a long time to do that. Because ultimately, the only person who can tell you what makes you happy is yourself. You can't have other people dictate what makes you happy and what you want to do in the end.
And like career changes, like why are they stigmatized? You know, like when you're older and you decide that like, oh, well, I've been, I don't know, something for so many years, that doesn't mean that I can't change. And everybody's growing and developing as you age, so it's really not a big deal. And if anything, it should be celebrated because you found this new aspect of yourself that you're really interested in, and you have this like newfound passion in your life. So
you can also use the knowledge that you gain from in another career too. Because it's not just like, sometimes it's not just the technical things either, it's like the life lessons that you learn with that, you can apply that to other aspects as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, Dean, you also brought up a really good point about how right now, in the context of like a high school senior, we have our whole lives ahead of us. You know, we have all these opportunities, all these connections, all these resources, all this education at our disposal. So if you're super passionate about something, it really comes down to what you prioritize first. If you know that, you know, like the arts, for example, is something that you can really commit to and something you feel super confident in as an outlet, why wouldn't you seize this, you know, all this unlimited potential just to fit the mold of what would be more secure, you know? Like, for me, it sounds like you already know what you want to the person that submitted it. You know, if I ask you right now, what do you want to do in the future? Just sit with that real quick. The first answer that comes to mind is what your like core self, your authentic self desires, and that's your intuition speaking. That's what, you know, that's okay. That's a sign that, you know, that's what you need to pursue. And once you start talking yourself down, and like the next answers that start to come to mind, like, oh, what if I'm not good enough? What if you know, this is a gamble, or like I can't make enough money by pursuing this. That's just what you've been conditioned to think, you know, by all the constraints of society, and also like parental expectations, also like what your peers might be pursuing. But at the end of the day, at least for me, my priority is how I want to feel about myself when I rest my head on my pillow at the end of the day. You know, my question to you is like, who are you really? Like, what do you really want for yourself? What kind of intention do you want to honor throughout, you know, everything that you pursue in life, beneath all these pressures to uphold these external measures of success? Because I don't know if I should be saying this, but like the brutal truth is that your parents and your family, they're going to pass away at some point. So, you know, if you spend your entire life, you know, building your life around their expectations and their wants and their values, how are you going to feel about yourself? What's your sense of identity going to be derived from once those people are gone, you know? So yeah, that's why I think a lot of people have midlife crises, because, you know, they spend their whole life trying to cater towards everybody else's expectations except their own, you know. So food for thought.
I think a reason why they're crises is because, like what Dean said, they don't have that kind of like time to develop these skills, and they're kind of just throwing them into what they think they love or what they all of a sudden are into without actually like taking the steps to become good at that profession, which is a sad thing. And it kind of shows with Quincie, like Dean and Quincie's points were kind of very alternate to each other. They're two different paths, but both kind of have the same outcome. Like, you have to know what you want, and if you don't know what you want, like, that's okay, but don't make your whole life about this suddenly. You can't just change it. We have to think more responsibly about that.
Another really big point, because I think we're talking so much about like what happens in the future, and like I know that's your main question, like how is making this choice going to impact me in the future, but you have to understand that like you can't predict everything. I know it's really scary, and like personally, yeah, like to me, it's really difficult for me to imagine like a future beyond now, and I have a lot of trouble like seeing where I would be in the future. But it's also, it's really nice to just live in the moment, and I know that's super cliche, but once you live in the moment, you stop worrying about so much things. When I was like in sophomore year, I think I really wanted to be an art major, and I was actually like planning to applying to like art schools. I was looking into like Lizzy and like Cal Arts and stuff, and then it was like SAT season, and I had to balance SAT courses and art courses because I was going to those courses to like learn how to make my portfolio and make it more professional. And like for me, that there was a lot of issue with my money because both are really expensive, so I had to like choose between those. And I chose to do SAT courses because I was like, yeah, it's just fine. Like I'll just go to UC school. Like this is where I am, and I decided that this would be the path I would take. And now here I am. UC schools aren't accepting SAT scores, or they're not requiring SAT scores, and now I have money spent on courses that I didn't really need, and I have no art portfolio. So I think if you're not going to make the choice that you really want to make, you're going to regret it. I know it's difficult to like actually admit to yourself, I want to go into art, and I know you want to. Like, this is to the person that asked the question. I know you really want to. Like, that's why you're asking the question, right? Like, you wouldn't be asking the question if you didn't want to go into art. And like at this point, you're just looking to see if you should really make that decision, and you should, because pain, you're going to regret like whatever you do, so you might as well like do the more fun choice, right? Like I don't know.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree that we need to start living in the moment a little bit more. I think we need to destroy this really unhealthy preconception that like living in the moment and making decisions on impulse is a bad thing, or it's like a reckless thing. Because the way that I see it is, when you listen to your intuition, like the inner monologue that's telling you, you need to do this, or like we should definitely do this. And when you take into account all of like the experiences that you've had that have fueled your passion for art, that's the way that your life was meant to be. The way that I see it is like you attract what is meant for you, or what you're ready for. There's two things that there's two experiences that you're going to have in life. It's either what you're ready for, like what you're prepared for, what all of your lived experiences have culminated in, or what you need to experience. So maybe that's like some adversity, it's like this conflict that you're having right now about whether I should choose security or like my passion. Those are the two things that the only two experiences that you're going to ever have in life. So I feel like, again, like since it sounds like you're very set on pursuing art, like you should definitely go through with it, because like as a counterpoint to like what Christina brought up, like for me, when I was a freshman, I was like super studious, and I was very dead set on being like either salutatorian or valedictorian. Like that was my whole personality trait, and like I wanted to overwork myself with all these 6 AP classes in like senior year. But in sophomore year, I made like a super impulsive decision to apply for ASB. Here we go again. And I served as a publicity and arts member for 2 years, and honestly, that experience, I would have never had it another way, because it prompted so much self-exploration, and also it helped me discover like how much I really enjoy serving other people, whether that's through art or just through leadership. And it eventually pushed me to pursue being a peer counselor and like peer mediation, and also linktr leader, all these other things. So I feel like if you can't find faith in yourself right now, or if you're not receiving faith from other people, place all of your faith in the process. Just get super intentional about what kind of person you want to be at the end of the day, how you want to feel about yourself, and how you want to make other people feel. And regardless of like what means you go about doing it, as long as you have that sense of direction in your life, everything is going to work out for you.
Yeah, this kind of goes back to the whole idea that these years sort of determine the rest of your life. As much as I hate to like really like think about it, what we do now determines what's going to happen to us for the rest of our lives. So,
Gross.
this is going to be a weird like analogy, but we're gonna roll with it. All right. So when you go to a resort, like what is the age group that you primarily tend to see? Like you go to a resort, the beach. What is like the age group that you see the most? Do you think? Like
I've never been to Hawaii.
That's like down to like the top 2, right?
The age group, I would say like middle-aged.
Or like old.
So
Yeah.
So there's a reason why they call this golden years, and that's because that's by the time that they're retired and they actually get to do what they want to do. But at that point, like they kind of have to be regular a very minuscule amount of things. Like they aren't in the best health compared to when they were 20 to 30, and they stress themselves out working 9 to 5s and really not really worrying about anything else. And at this point now, they're just sort of doing whatever they can to sort of feel satisfied with themselves, even if that just means doing what everyone else is doing, which is like moving to Florida and being whatever, just hanging out on the beach. And so I feel like that, like what you said, Mia, before about really trying to make the most out of living in the moment, that's really what counts. Because if you just have that sort of mindset where you just continue on a certain trajectory, which you know like is going to be just here for you and won't necessarily bring you the happiness that you deserve, then you're just going to end up feeling stuck later in life.
I feel like you have to be able to find that balance. Like it is important. It's like, while it is important to like make those long-term goals and like think about where am I going to be in like 5 years, it's also important to know like to kind of go with your happiness now. Like instead of, this is kind of what I do, because I don't know, thinking long-term makes me really nervous. So I try to do like shorter term, not like directly in the moment, but like how am I going to be in a month from now, or like how am I going to be in 2 weeks from now? Like, is it still gonna be the same? Because my mind changes a lot of the time, and I can't like focus on like a specific thing always. Like, I don't know how to word this, but you have to like know what makes you happy now, and think about it. But like, short-term goals. Short-term.
Yeah, I mean, you have to check in with yourself and like, I mean, it's the balance of like being present, but also being able. I know, some PC talk.
Here we go.
Like, you have to make sure that you're happy. Like exactly what Lizzy said. Like you have to make sure you're happy now, but there also is that important. Like you have to be able to look into the future, because if you don't, you might not see things that are then, or So when you think about, I guess, like for seniors, like think about what you want to do with the rest of your life. Like, of course, think about what you're thinking about now and like what's really important to you now, but also make sure that like that's still going to be relevant when you're older. And it doesn't have to be like when you're in your like 40s. It could just be like when you're 20 or like when you're starting to graduate. Like, is this realistically what I think I want to do? And I mean, I'm the worst person to be giving this advice because I have no idea what I want to do.
Me too.
But it's just kind of that, like, just find that balance or try to, and then, that's...
Yeah. There's this quote that goes, like, it's by Eckhart Tolle, I believe. He's a really good author. Definitely recommend. But anyways, he says, like, I think it goes, like, you can't cope with the past or the future, but you can only cope with the present, because that's the only thing that is right in front of us. It's the only thing that's tangible. That's the only thing we really know. Like, okay, here we go. This is so big brain kind of stuff. But it's like the past and the future, if you really think about it, they're just projections of the mind. They're in all honesty, they're illusions.
Oh my
God. The past is, we usually consider that like, oh, it's our history, it's our family's history, it's like my lived experiences, and you become attached to them, so we let those experiences govern what we choose to do in the moment. But we can't ever exactly we never have exact recollections of the past because, obviously time passes, the experiences that we have, build on top of each other, so we start to perceive whatever happened beforehand through a very distorted and like nuanced lens, the more time passes. And we brought this up a lot, but you can't predict the future. Like there's no knowing whether what you're interested in right now is going to be something that's going to fulfill you in the future. So, like, why would you waste the time and the energy worrying about those two, false illusions of like, who you are or who you're supposed to be, and just rather focus on, what is fulfilling to you right now? Because when we were talking about this, the question that came to mind is like, is it selfish to pursue a path that doesn't align with, like your family's values or the expectations that, society places on you? But I feel like it's a little bit more selfish to limit yourself from something that you're super passionate about and something that, you can wholeheartedly offer to the community and create these ripple effects of, like inspiration and feeling like super uplifted by something that you're, really drawn to. I feel like it's more selfish to
hold yourself back.
Yeah, to hold yourself back and deny that contribution to the community just because you want to focus on this little microcosm of the world and making everyone basically like appealing to everybody
happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, because it's like I feel like a lot of people think that it's selfish to do what you want to do, but actually it sometimes can be more selfish to deprive the people around you from your innermost like passion or what you're really good at and what you can serve other people with, just for the sake of pleasing your family, pleasing your parents, pleasing this idea of like what you're supposed to be. Or even sometimes for security, like we're going back to that. Sometimes it can be selfish to go for security when you're like a really great artist and you decide, you know what, I don't want to do that. I want to, like become a nurse because I know that it'll give me job security. And, I'll get an education and all this stuff. And then you realize later in life that your art could have changed somebody else's life. It could have changed many people's lives. You could have been an inspiration. You could have done something for them, and you didn't just because you wanted that security. And I totally get it. It's human nature to want that security, but you also have to balance with like, what can I offer the world and how can I do that in the best way possible?
So this is like the hardest thing I've been having trouble like reconciling. It's like, how do you differentiate between like, feeling really passionate about something and wanting to offer, your gifts to the world, and also being sure that you're not doing something just because you want to like please other people, because it's like, I don't know how to explain it.
I feel like in a way, I can sort of get what you're saying, but in a way it sort of comes down to how you want to justify it. Because if it's something that you desire, it's something that like you will always find a way to be able to justify. But if you struggle with finding that sort of justification, then that's often because of some sort of external barrier to you. So whether that be your parents or their like values or morals, that is a huge barrier to sort of understanding why it's sort of selfish to have that sort of personal security. But the way that I sort of came about doing it is, well, my family has always emphasized security for your family, because that's ultimately what it's about. Just sort of imparting knowledge and security to both you and your children and the rest of your family, whether it be here or the family starts or the family that you have in the Philippines. So that's kind of me. But
specific.
The way that I sort of came about it was that sort of feeling of just security for other people, that imparting your, like, what you have to your family, that can't not be extended to other people as well. And that's something that I feel like my culture has sort of had to deal with. It's something that we don't really think about too often, because it's hard to sort of grasp if all that you had on your mind was just straight up security. It's hard to sort of see anything else as fulfilling, especially if what you value most is family. And so reorienting your mindset to be more geared towards what you can do for everyone, not just you or your family, that's what's important. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have to, that you can't emphasize family. It just means that you can share it with more than just your inner social or familial structure.
I'm gonna kind of dive into that, and I just wanted to say, like, it's not selfish wanting to do what you want to do, because this is gonna sound mean, but you can tell when people hate their job. And if you're going, like, say you want to, like, you become a nurse because you want that security, your patients are going to be able to tell you don't want to really be there, you know?
Exactly.
And that's not going to benefit the community. And you can't, if you want to go, like, you can't make your family happy until you make yourself happy first, because those emotions will spread to the rest of your family. So if you're
100%,
if you're, like, not
That's
happy,
true.
your family won't be happy either.
Will
You
know.
tell that you're not happy with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of giving that example to them that it's not okay. It's okay to not be happy with what you're doing, and that's not what you really want to be doing, you know?
And I feel like that can sort of lead into sort of toxic mindsets in certain professions.
Yes.
I didn't think I would go here, but something that, like, I thought was, like, interesting, something that I read up a while ago, was the idea of nurse bullies. That sounds like a weird concept, right? But
no, I know you're talking about.
There's this weird pattern of people who just sort of have this sort of negative mindset, who enter into medical professions. And there's like an entire Wikipedia page on it. It's insane. But what it really comes down to is how people sort of see that sort of security, and also how they see themselves perceived as when they enter that profession. And this sort of also goes back to how it's sometimes selfish to enter into something that you find to be more geared towards security as opposed to personal ambition. Because in a way, like, people who enter nursing, who generally have a toxic mindset, will sort of enter it knowing, I'm going to make a lot of money, I can sort of stunt on people, that I went through all this education to be able to get here, and also I can say that I save lives for a living. So it sort of feeds into that sort of, there's sort of this negative feedback loop that comes into play in terms of their own mindset, because it sort of feeds into this sort of selfish point of view.
Yeah, I think we kind of brought this up a little bit in the last episode. If you listen to it, it's like reevaluating your motives for pursuing something, because, like, I brought up the point how, like, even, like, the most selfish professions or the most selfless deeds can have inherently selfish ulterior motives. So, like, for example, you know, it's like you, like I said it in the last episode, but it's like you take care of your family, obviously because you love them, but also because you want to keep them around. You need that sense of community. You need people to provide for your needs. So I'm just gonna go on a completely tangent, but Lizzy, I think that was such an important point, that, you know, you have to make yourself happy first before you can make your family happy, because in the context of, like, the submitter, like, you know, like, yeah, you can pursue the path that your parents or your family wants you to pursue, but you know, how is that going to affect your relationship with them down the line? Like, you know, are you going to be harboring this towards them for the rest of your life? Because, you know, you feel like you have to cater to their needs before your own. And also, if you do pursue that in the future, like when you have a family of your own, if you want to, you know, like how is that, you know, disconnect between what you're passionate about and what you're actually doing going to affect your family?
They're going to perpetuate this. They're mad that they didn't get to do what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
So then they're going to be like, you know what, go for security, and then it's going to happen all over again. Yeah, I think we brought up a really important point when we said that, you know, it's sometimes inherently selfish to go for security, because I feel like that's something, I don't know, it's really complicated because it really depends on your situation and the person. You know, like what Dean said, like with obviously like immigrant parents who just moved here looking for security, like that's not selfish, that's just trying to make a life. But there are some people who do have the privilege to do other things, and they still go for the highest paying. And I feel like that's where it becomes selfish, you know? And yeah.
It's not trying to like bash on the medical field or anything. It's just like
I know. No, this isn't like a specific career. Like this applies to like tech or, you know, like business. This applies to everything.
Even
but
art.
for some reason,
like, I feel
we
like
just
everything
kind of
has like,
chose business.
It comes out most in the medical field, you know? Like, it's like, are you doing this because you want to save people's lives or because you need money?
True.
You know, you want the money.
It's true. Like the whole idea of like, oh, like go be a doctor, but like some people just aren't cut out to be doctors, and they just shouldn't pursue that career, but they still do, you know? Yeah. I mean, it definitely applies to like tech and business too. If anything, sometimes more so, because those are like really, they can be really high paying.
High-end jobs,
Yeah, professions.
Okay, so we've obviously given you guys a lot to think about, but I think we should take this time to circle back to the original question, which was, how do you find faith in doing something that others don't believe you can do, especially if it's a gamble? So all things considered, my final words to you is, you know, I said it before, but if you can't find faith in yourself and you're not receiving it from anybody else, place all of your faith in the process and get real and get clear with yourself about, you know, what intentions you want to set moving forward. You don't necessarily have to attach yourself to like what distinct profession you want to be, like, oh, I want to be an artist, I want to be a nurse, blah blah blah. Just get clear about how you want to live your life, how you want it to feel for you, how you want it to feel for other people, and you know, like I said before, like everything that you've gone through up until this point has prepared you for the step that you're going to take next. So whatever you feel is best for you and fulfills you the most, and that you can offer to this community, go for it full force.
So I related a lot of this back to culture, to individual professions, and a lot of like introspective sort of things. But ultimately it comes down to just reflection, sort of back to what Mia said about really going full force on what you have to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't really find security to be something that you want to pursue. If you can a way to make mundane things or make just things that will have that sort of security for you, but also grant you that same sort of lifestyle that you want to achieve, that is something that you should really take into account. So really mindset, or knowing how to rework your mindset in order to achieve that goal. If you can be optimistic in even the most dire of situations, then that's something to take into consideration. You ultimately decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Oh my god, can I add something really quick?
Go ahead.
No, yeah, okay. But that just like brought me, that caused me to think about this one like proverb, I guess you could say, is like, you know, you don't always have to know like what exactly you want to do or like what you want, but just as long as you know the feeling behind it that you want it to evoke. So for example, like it goes like, if you think about a red car and you look at the street, all you're gonna see is red cars. So if you know, like, I want to feel peaceful, I want to feel fulfilled, I want to serve people, I want my life to serve me, then that's, like, if you're clear on your vision, then that's all you're gonna see. Those are the ones that you're gonna perceive through.
Manifesting?
Well, that's another podcast episode.
Yeah.
Okay, anyways, who wants to go next?
I'll go next. So my advice would be, like, whatever route you do take for your job, make sure to remember to, like, be a good person, like, just don't make your job your entire life. Make sure you keep your family close, your health. There's a lot of other things that people kind of forget. It's not all about money. You have to keep your mental health in check. Make sure you don't, like, lose yourself as a person in your job,
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do have a job in the future where you're happy or you're rich or successful or whatever it is, you want to have that job as you. You don't want to be some random person with that job.
Definitely.
Don't lose touch of who you are just for money.
Yes.
Oh, do I want to go? Okay. Okay, I'll go. I just think go off. Do what you want to do, but at the same time, like, have a backup plan. And if that backup plan is like in the same industry, the same kind of area, do it. Like, you know what? Like, I have like a bunch of different backup plans, like a lot. Like, I can't count them, but like they're all like, it's staggered. They're all kind of the same thing. So have plans, but also have plans for if the plans don't go well.
Plan B.
Yeah.
Tree of
Yeah.
So I guess my advice would be just know you have your whole life ahead of you still. Like, yes, these years are really important, but you still have time to decide what you want to do. And would, like, make yourself happy first. Because I said it before, but you can't make other people happy before you make yourself happy. And ultimately, no one's going to be able to tell you what makes you happy. That's something that you got to figure out on your own. And just put that into your life. Like, is this going to make me happy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess closing words would be kind of like what Mia said. Like, you want to make sure that how you feel is the most important thing when you're deciding what to do with your life. And then also build on that, like what Aeva and John were saying earlier about backup plans. And, if you have something, say you want to pursue art, also, you can educate yourself on the business side of your, artistic, career, like educate yourself on ways that you can grow and educate, and maybe this will help with your family support. Like, obviously you don't want to people please and you don't want to cater to them, but it could help to get that security into your passion, I guess, to kind of like blend the two so that you get the support of the people that you love.
Very sweet. Okay. So I think my response is a lot more direct than like what everyone else has been saying, but to the person who sent the question, if you're like listening to this podcast, like, this is your sign. Like, there's a reason we chose their question, and there's a reason you're listening to it, and there's a reason you decided to ask this question. And, there's a reason we have Aeva on this like podcast, and there's a reason like everyone's on here telling you all these things. And I just want you to understand that no one else can control your future but you. And even you can't control your future correctly. Like, even if you decide that you're not going to go into art and you decide to go into a different field, you can't even control that. Like, you don't even know if that'll go like the best way, right? So I think you might as well go the fun way. And honestly, art isn't like always fun, and art also has its like ups and downs, and you're going to go through that. But you're going to go through the same thing with architecture or like comp sci or just any other major. So I just want you to be the best person that you can be, and just tell yourself that you can do art. And I believe in you. Everyone in this podcast believes you. You have a chance to do what you want, and we root for you. So good luck.
Yay!
Yay!
Oh, and if you are taking art and you're not a senior, please join clubs for good things.
Oh yeah. Yes. Join Publicity next year.
Join Pubs. Pubs is why I like art more.
Yeah. Yes.
So that marks the end of our podcast. So thank you all for tuning in wherever you're tuning in from, whether that be on YouTube, Instagram, or Spotify, or wherever else our thing is being streamed. I don't even know where all of our podcasts are being streamed. I don't know why we're on Apple Podcasts for some reason. I don't know why. But
We are? Yes.
yeah, we are. So if you love what we're doing, you want to tune in for more, be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, whatever. Add us to your Spotify thing.
Yeah. And our Instagram is at ohswestwing, and in our bio you can find a link tree that has a link to our Google form where you can submit podcast topics, or you can apply to be our next podcast speaker. Thank you again, Ava, for coming and joining us today. We really appreciated your presence, and we look forward to having more students on this podcast.
Thank you.
Yay! I hope you guys loved it. And
This is fucking...
sorry, I didn't realize I was gonna say something.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying thank you. I'm sorry that the thing cut out, but I was happy to be here, so thank you.
Hope you guys loved this episode. Tune in next week when we talk about everything wrong with High School Musical and how it glorifies the teenage experience.
And also the Mulan live action movie. It's a Disney fest.
Yes, Disney Fest. Even though we're bashing on Disney, but we love Disney.
It's okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you guys.
Bye, everybody.